What's going on, Tube of the U? My name is Brainsmasher, and I'm going to be showing you some stuff I've gotten in my collection over the last couple of weeks. Stick around, will you? How you doing? My name is Brainsmasher. Thanks for watching my video. Gonna be talking about some records, some obscure kind of favorites, some stuff I've been digging lately. As always, if you aren't already, please subscribe. That way you become a cooler person by way of me. You're welcome. In the background, while I flap my gums, we're gonna be listening to some obscure kind of pagan black death metal. I hope you're into that. I hope that's your bag. It certainly is mine. This recently came into my mailbox. The band is called Mystic Death. And you know what? I'm blanking on where they're from. I want to say Slovakia. Originally released in '97. Which is one of my favorite years for black and death metal. This was a self-released release back then when it came out, and again the reissue, I believe. No, I'm sorry. This came out on Metal Age originally, which is kind of a cool label. We like them, but this was looks like it was self-released by the band 2019. So. We're going to be digging that. I hope you like that. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of like some Septic Flesh sort of stuff, like Ophidian Wheel era kind of stuff. It's cool. It's got some of the kind of nice, like, watery sort of flange-laden guitar harmony kind of stuff, and then kind of like the exalted Korg synthesizer sort of stuff going on. It toes the line between black and death metal really, really nicely. And hopefully the YouTube police have not caught up on what this is so that this video doesn't get me pulled over and arrested in by the cops and all that. So I have a lot of stuff in here. Some of the stuff is absolutely incredible. Stick around. It's amazing stuff I have here. What's also amazing is that I have something like 4,000 to 5,000 albums in my collection, and I still go, no, I'm not going to listen to one I already have. I'm going to buy another record. I'm probably going to listen to it too. I keep doing it, you keep doing it, that's why we do this. The main thing is we're supporting people who make music that exalts the devil, right? So, in that pursuit, I don't know. Where do we start? One of my choices. No, I'm not gonna get into that. Here we go. Aberration. Yeah, Norway's Aberration. This was on a lot of people's year-end lists last year, and it was really hard to find a copy of this. At least for me here in the United States. But this is Demonolatry. I first heard of this band, I believe, because Roger Kjurvik did a video where he played their demo in the background several years ago now, but I was really, really impressed by that demo. By the way, I'll leave a link for all of this stuff, every single one of these things that I talk about down below, so you can check it out, and you should support the artists that I'm showing in this video. So what are Aberration? They are, even though they're from Norway, I don't really think they have a lot in common with their country folk. They're, I guess the closest thing I would say as far as another Norwegian band that they sound like, would be, I'm blanking on the name, like Inculter. That's one of those, you know, and then there's, Obliteration here. Yeah. There's a whole school of bands in there that, are kind of like doing a take on sort of an old school death metal sound. This is a little more old school than those other bands I just mentioned. But holy shit, this album smokes. I did hear someone make a pretty apt comparison to Altars of Madness, Morbid Angel. And I, like, sure, there are moments on here that sound quite a bit like that, but I mean, like, what death metal band doesn't have parts that sound like Morbid Angel? I mean, they're the greatest death metal band ever. But there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of old school sort of eccentricities here and there. But, man, it's just barbaric, unrelenting, cavernous, and just, it's so sinister and so effective. And they've managed to just inject so much energy into these songs. It is just almost overwhelming to get through this album. It's almost a slog because it's just so unrelenting and pummeling. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it. This is called Voices of the Obscure World. And I did fail, I think, to show their cool band photo from back in 1997. So there you are. Cool guys, and all that stuff. Hope you're liking it. I love it. I can't remember how I discovered this. Anyway, it's on Bandcamp. You can pick this up for not too much. That is limited to 300 copies, so you probably ought to move on it if this tickles your fancy. I don't know why, but my friend Melanie from Melanie Loves Death Metal is frequently purging her collection of releases. And she throws them up on Depop for very, very cheap, and I love cashing in on a lot of stuff that I maybe missed out on, or stuff that just kind of like, it's in my price range that I'm looking for because I'm a cheap bastard. And so I wound up picking up a couple of things. One of them, chiefly, is this thing that I've just been meaning to pick up. It's just kind of been avoiding me for many, many, many years. But Necrophobic's third album, if I'm not mistaken, is The Third Antichrist. Conveniently titled album. So, I was just kind of like a pedestrian fan of Necrophobic's Dark Side for many, many, many years. It was one of the first metal albums I ever got into way, way, way back in the day in 96 or so. And that was just kind of like my endpoint with the band. I was like, it's fine. It's got, a song with some John Notefight kind of stuff on there. They partnered with Dissection for a song. That was fun. But upon, I did a episode of the Wednesday Album Club with the Heavy Metallurgy YouTube channel, and we talked about that album Dark Side at length. And I listened to it more for that video than I ever have, I think. And I found out that I actually don't know, I've got some qualms with that album a little bit. It's great, but I've actually got some qualms about this band. I would maybe say that this is a more solid album than Dark Side, just by a pinch. But what really like kind of digs under my skin about this band is the way the drumming. The drummer just kind of has this, like, he plays on the offbeat, the way he has kind of like that in tune kind of, and that beat from me is effective at certain points, and with some some levity, with a lot of other stuff going on. There's just a lot of times on this album in this band where I wish he would just like revert to like a double bass 2/4 kick kind of thing. That's just the way that he accompanies the riffs rhythmically. For me, it just kind of gets on my gears for some reason, grinds on my gears for a little bit. So I don't know. I need to spend more time with that one. I also don't quite love the debut of Necrophobic. I'm a little picky about my Necrophobic. Let's just put it that way. Dark Side is killer, and I'm thankful to finally have a copy of that so I can really dig into it. That's one of those things that's just kind of a peripheral album where I'm not going to bother like downloading it to check it out. But I was kind of like holding a place in my collection to have a physical copy of it if I ever came across it for cheap. And yeah, you know how collecting goes. A couple of new-ish releases picked up from the Nuclear War Now folks down there. This was also one of my favorites from last year, but I hadn't had a copy of it until now. Adorior's Bleed on My Teeth. Probably a little adult rated there on the visuals. yeah, these guys kind of have this, like, I don't know, perverted sort of style about the way that they portray themselves and what their songs are about. I've not like sat down and like pondered over the lyrics at all, but it definitely paints the style that they're going for, and I kind of dig it. Some of their album covers are some of the most perverted album covers I have ever seen. Go and look it up. It is insane. It is insane. But this band kind of plays like an old school style of thrash. But when they play death metal, which is maybe 75% of the time, I kind of miscategorized that to start off with, but it's kind of like thrashy death metal. And they are bestial at all times, and they are just always bursting forth with something unexpected. It's just really, really like it's hard to like vibe with it, if you will, which I kind of love. It's just like taking a shot of jet fuel and just like running through an office building, bashing your head on all the corners. It is. These guys have a ton of fucking energy, and they've been around, I think, since like '93, and they haven't shown any sign of letting up. It's just their discography is very, very sparse. I want to say this is maybe their third full length. I really love Author of Incest. So Dark Descent and Sepulchral Voice put this good-looking digipack out, as Dark Descent always does. But man, this thing has been ruling me. I haven't actually dug into the booklet yet. Usually I don't really care to point out that a singer is female, but in this case, this singer she uses this to great effect. Now, she has a great Black Death kind of screech kind of voice, but there's times when she uses it almost like a falsetto kind of like, I'm not going to impersonate it right now because I won't be able to pull it off. My voice is kind of hoarse right now. I've been recording vocals myself. But the way that she uses those kind of like shrill moments, it's not like a glam yell kind of thing like you might expect. It's just wild. It's just a really, really awesome touch on a band that you really have to kind of pay attention to understand the depth of what you're hearing going on there. There's a lot going on. So I have a stack of CDs. I have some vinyl. Actually, I did say another new one. So I'm hoping that you checked out my video review of this album on the Heavy Metallurgy channel. Naked Whipper's new one with Chapel Defilement. Now, if you're a well-versed metalhead like me, you might look at this and think, it's some Moincore kind of stuff. I know what it sounds like. It's probably, Black Witchery kind of, whatever, Beherit, Blasphemy kind of stuff. And I'm not going to say you're wrong. And I have some of that kind of stuff in my collection, and I do like some bands like that, but I certainly can have my fill. Now, I think that the black metal elements on this album are certainly akin to your Moincore kind of Blasphemy, Black Witchery, etc. kind of stuff, but this here to me is better understood as a black grind album. And the grindcore that is included on this style, on this album, is more of kind of like a early 90s German kind of style. The singer who I think wrote all these songs and sings on this album, all the band stuff, also sang on Blood's Christ Bait. So there's kind of a Brethren kind of album for you to compare it to. I think the band that he has assembled on here also play in Ungod and Bazazaza, if I'm not mistaken. I did a little bit of research to try and figure out who it was, but dude, the riffs on here are just unrelentingly fun and awesome. The drumming is very pummeling and fun. It's simplistic, it's fist-pounding kind of stuff. And I think maybe my favorite element about this album is the production on it. It is super clear, it's perfectly fine, it's pedestrian, it's just perfectly adequate for that kind of thing. Everything sounds perfectly represented, and it's the kind of thing you're just going to want to crank up to 1,000,000 and bang your fucking skull to. It's incredible. Check out Chapel Defilement from Naked Whipper. I never expected these guys to come back after 30 years of being down, to come back with such a perfect album. It sounds pulled exactly out of 1995. Okay, sorry I had to pause there because I was distracted because I remembered that there was an album that I forgot to grab out of my collection to show you. Let's just get this one out of the way. Speaking of another reissue of a 90s thing, that's kind of my thing. Here we have Equinox's Return to Mystery. Oh, just behold. Now look, I don't love this cover artwork, but the original cover art was kind of whatever. Let's just look at this, okay? Floridian death metal, originally released in '94, if I'm not mistaken. But Vic just did a nice reissue of these, of this one, and they also did a reissue, Epitome of Illusion, something like that, which was a much newer album, I think from 2004. I might still pick up that vinyl, we shall see, but this thing is incredible. I believe it was remastered also. It sounds amazing. And like, once I got this in my mailbox, I didn't stop listening to this for like 3 or 4 days. If you're not familiar with Equinox, shame on you, number one. But they really, really sound like if Mayhem's De Mysteriis Dom Satanis had been like peppered in with a lot of Celtic Frost type of riffs. They really, really have this dichotomy of styles within every song, and I really, really love how they use that to such great effect to give some diversity of voice to their style. And they're from Florida, and they have a lot of like tonality commonalities with a lot of other Floridian bands. This was recorded in Morris Sound Studio, so it sounds incredible. But just the wax presentation on this also just sounds amazing. Pretty good looking wax here too. Purple, one of my favorite colors. So I don't know. I hope you check out this Equinox stuff if you're not familiar. This is essential stuff. God, I thought I loved that album a lot, but upon getting it, the reissue of it, I was just like, my love for this album went way, way, way up. 4 notches up. Looks like I'm probably going to have to turn this into a 2-parter. Weird coincidence. This is maybe the strangest coincidence I ever could have imagined. So, I don't know. This album came out about 10 years ago. To little or no fanfare. There's like one review of it on Metal Archives for 87%. And it came out on Aftermath Music. I loved it back when it came out. Kind of kept up with the band a little bit. But they haven't really done anything since this one came out. The coincidence is how I just kind of like on a whim decided to get this on vinyl, or like look up a copy of it last year. Found a seller in Canada that had it, and the Canadian Post was on strike. Solidarity with them. But it took a really long time to get to my house. Today, I put it on, and I was blown away by this album. I went to look up the band, and I found out that mere hours ago, hours from when this video is being shot, the main songwriter passed away today. So, R.I.P., dude. This is Nettle Carrier with Black Coffin Rights. So, bummer. I don't know, most people I don't think know much about Nettle Carrier. It's kind of a weird name, I get it. But the guitar player, the one who died yesterday or today or something, also played in that Norwegian band Jevel, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, DJEVEL, which is a band I sometimes kind of have listened to. I'm not going to say I'm familiar, but this is where I am familiar with his work. And this album is fucking brilliant. It's brilliant. Also, the riffs are accentuated by Dirge Rep, or I think Per Egrid is actually his real name. He played in Gehenna and Au Noir and stuff like that. Sting absolutely kills riffs all over the place. Great riffs. The riffs, also like the album cover is also kind of whatever. So like I get why the band name and the album cover is kind of like something you would just pass over without knowing what it is. But I'm here to tell you, pick this up. It's so good. It is a Norwegian black metal. It has a lot of commonalities, I think, with like something Gorgoroth may have done in the late 90s. I didn't really like that. Was it Destroyer, that album or something? I feel like this would be like kind of a perfect replacement for Destroyer in a way. However, what makes Nettle Carrier, I think, even more unique than Gorgoroth is a lot of the riffing accentualities. Is that a word? I don't know. Has a lot to do with Destruction, I think, where they're doing the kind of like that's not even a good representation of what I'm talking about, but these little squirrely kind of noodly finger tap kind of riffs. I feel like the riffing kind of has a lot of like, you know, trem picking and then like a lot of noodling kind of tap things that are really, really weird. I'm not familiar enough with Jevil to really compare his playing in Nettle Carrier to that at all. But sad day to find out that this guy died. But I don't know. If that bums you out, pick up Black Coffin Rites if you're not familiar with Nettle Carrier. And I know the band name is kind of like, what are they talking about? Kettles? But nettles are a kind of a weed, and they are very, very stingy, and they hurt when you touch them. So, you know, that's the idea. Like, you wouldn't touch a nettle and it hurts, but they carry them because they're hurt. It doesn't hurt them because they're tough, right? Well, yeah, I'm especially chatty today. I don't got some. This is also a killer one. This is killer. So test pressing, so it's not a lot to look at. Also got this from NWN, but Vehement Thrower with what is this called? I Come in Peace. Killer riff. So Nuclear were now reissued this bad boy maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago now. And it is a Polish grind album that was kind of lost to obscurity for many years, but definitely worth putting back out there. It's so good. If you are a fan of Terrorizer, World Downfall, get it. Get this fucker. It rules. I'm going to try and shut up and kind of move through some of these a little bit faster now. But, dude, Vehement Thrower is such a great band name, too. Why would you not pick that up? Okay, maybe no, I'm going to save the absolute banger towards the end. Went to a show the other day, randomly just kind of went into a record store. I wasn't expecting to find anything, because they were kind of pricey. I'll be honest, everything in there was kind of pricey, and I don't know why this wasn't pricey. But it turns out, I think this isn't very hard to get copies of, but it's an OG. Chastain's, the 7th of Never. So Rulers of the Wasteland, love that fucking album. That album alone has made me a big Chastain fan. So Rulers of the Wasteland is their second album. I went and picked up their first album last year or so. Didn't really love it. This is the one after Rulers of the Wasteland, and it's pretty good. Let's be honest. It's pretty sick. So that is an OG. I don't know, it's kind of like power metal with really, really great thrash kind of riffs. Leather Leone is maybe one of the most metal vocalists of all time. Picked this up for like $7 or something like that. So, dude, yeah, Chastain, do yourself a favor. If you're not familiar at all and you love 80s metal, Rulers of the Wasteland is just an unimaginably perfect record. I'm going to skip this one. Picked up a demo comp from Desultory. Darkness Shall Rise did this one. There's only 10 tracks on this one. It's called Darkness Falls. And this was, I believe, a bootleg for many, many, many years. And so they did an interview for this one. There's a ton of... This booklet is so thick. There's a ton of stuff in there. Darkness Shall Rise always puts together a ton of stuff, but this is all the demos, everything they did before the debut, and their demos are so killer. They're a Swedish death metal band that should not be forgotten, and I might almost say that their demo material is even more powerful and amazing than their records were. Not to take anything away from them, but they're kind of known for like Bitterness is kind of a melodic death metal kind of thing that was kind of like in the world of At the Gates sort of stuff. And then was it Into Eternity was their debut, which is really, really killer and awesome. This stuff isn't really as melodic, but it really, really just is akin to some of the early like Grave and Tomb Dismember stuff. God, this rules. Unbelievably good release. Okay, some stuff that you've probably not heard of. How about that? So, a band I've loved for a long time, just decided to check them out again for like some of the newer releases that I hadn't heard yet. Eyes of Lygia. Any of you guys into this band? The Sidereal Messenger. Not a really strong band on the visual side of things. And like, I'll be honest, this is like calming, soothing, haunting kind of black metal that I don't know if I would say the guitars are actually clean, but the distortion on the guitars is very, very, very low. It kind of has this like repetitive, hypnotic sort of composition style about it, and the vocals are almost like whispered. So it's kind of unique for being like kind of like an understated sort of melancholic, ghostly kind of black metal. There's nothing harsh really about it. It's just kind of grim and haunting and hypnotic. I would really like to see, like, this is a real DIY project. He's been just cranking out a lot of albums over the years by himself. I would really love to see him maybe work with like a whole band and have more input from other players to kind of I guess develop this idea a little bit more, and like go to a studio that would kind of help make these sounds a little bit more embellished with effects and stuff like that. It would be incredible. Not that this isn't a really incredible album. This is a self-release CDR that you can get on Bandcamp for I think $10. So that's been a nice breath of fresh air. They also have a album that I love called A Fever Which Would Cling to Thee, if you're keeping track at home. Let's see. Other bangers. Nuclear War Now Sale also picked up this one, Three Angled Void from Warlog. This is Finnish black metal of the highest order. You would never know what way it goes up. But another band that I never expected to come up with another full length. This came out in 2022, so it's a couple years old now. But this material dates back to, I want to say, the mid-aughts. So it's stuff that they've been working on for quite a while now, but grim, cold black metal from Finland, where some of the best cold black metal ever comes from. We're getting down to the end of the pile. I swear I won't take up too much more of your time. Another band I never expected to come back from the darkness. And a band that I have played a lot on my channel. I'm always evangelical about Moondark, and they are back, baby, with the abysmal Womb. So this is out on Pulverized, and it is so cool to see people finally remembering that this band rules. They're back, playing shows, recording new stuff. Now, the album, The Return. It's a strong return. It certainly compares quite well to the Shadow Path material. I think the Shadow Path is maybe better than this one. There's a few things that I would prefer to have be different about this album. The recording is kind of a little too digital for me. It's pretty clean. I think it kind of, for some reason, it doesn't quite have the like thundering undertone rumble of the Shadow Path. Even though the style is there, they're certainly not changing their style really whatsoever. It's a perfect follow-up to the Shadow Path. And I do love this. It rocks like it's almost like a Bolt Thrower kind of thing. If Bolt Thrower were more like haggard and morbid and dark, and maybe has more in common with like Grave, if you mix like Grave and Bolt Thrower, maybe. There's also a lot of elements of kind of like stoner, where they'll really just kind of slow down and be murky and repetitive and hypnotic here and there to great effect. And that just like makes the songwriting have a great breadth of styles, which is killer. But toward the end of the record, like I would say towards the last two songs or so, it's not that those songs are bad. It's just that by the time you wind up around 75% of the way through the album, you're kind of like, I wish there was something more going on here. It's, it's just a little gripe. I would say this is maybe overall like an 80 out of 10, out of 100, 80 out of 10. It's great. I'm so happy to hear them back. Maybe they will write more that rules even more. I don't regret the purchase whatsoever. I recommend it highly. But if I'm being honest, Shadow Path is maybe just a little bit more perfect. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend picking up the Shadow Path. And make sure you love that. And then if you do, pick up the Abysmal Womb. It's great. Couple more. Pro Sanctus and Fairy with their Hypnotic Blood Art. I don't know if I love this cover art. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it. But I've been meaning to pick this up for a long time. And these guys are very, very, very technical. And I don't know. It's almost like take Angel Corpse and make it even more kind of serpentine and sinister and just wild. I've always been really, really impressed by the creativity that Jake Cohn has. I believe he also spent some time playing with Father Befouled, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. Maybe it's just the old drummer that did that. I don't know. But yeah, this rules. I think Nuclear War Now actually, did the pressing of this one. Speaking of nostalgia, I don't know. I think all of this stuff is like old man metal. I'm sorry if that's not fun for you, but Headless Cross. So I was watching this video from Merciful Metal, another YouTuber on here that I love. Hot Takes. He was doing a Hot Takes video, which I think I'm going to do my own Hot Takes video. But his hot take was that this was his favorite Black Sabbath album. And the hot take was kind of a two-parter. It was like, Ozzy sucks, and this is the best Black Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to shit on on Ozzy, but Headless Cross certainly is my favorite Black Sabbath album. I feel like in my developmental years, in my 20s, I did spend a lot of time listening to Black Sabbath, and they're great. They are certainly distracted by a good riff. I'm very sorry. Certainly instrumental in the creation of this music that I'm obsessed with. I cannot deny that Black Sabbath were the starting point for most of the devilish metal that I love. And Headless Cross is easily my favorite, not because it sounds like the best Black Sabbath, but for me, it really brings up a nostalgic feeling to me of listening to late 90s kind of hard rock, heavy metal. This is very radio friendly. The songwriting is so memorable. The choruses are so catchy. What's Tony? Tony Martin. That's fucking Tony Martin. Is an amazing vocalist, and he's not like, he's pretty typical. If we're talking about like, big name hard rock bands of the late 80s, Tony Martin goes toe to toe with like the best. So that's not to say that he's like incredibly unique or anything, but hearing him in Black Sabbath, who are writing great songs with Cozy Powell on drums, who I also love, it's just a really, really perfect masterpiece. Headless Cross rules. And now I gotta drop one on you. I gotta drop this on you, and it's really gonna hurt. Finally reissued. This was, when I think about albums that I missed out on, things that I wish I will find in a bin, stuff that I want to get lucky and just like pick up somewhere on the cheap. Just copies of this were so dried up. I never thought this would be reissued. But I'm so happy this finally got reissued again, and I played it today in its entirety, and it's a record that sounds like it's gonna just crumble the foundation of your house and just bury you in rubble. And when it happens, you're just gonna go, that was so great. Pick this up immediately. Immortal Fate's beautiful. Reissued. Rescued from Life. That's it. The label that I got this from, Rescued from Life, right there. So, what are Immortal Fate like? It might be a little bit of a misleading cover because this, I would say, kind of looks like it might be like a Funeral Doom kind of death metal kind of thing. But this is maybe one of the greatest grindcore releases I have ever heard. Beautiful. And it was originally recorded in '93, if I'm not mistaken. Finally did a reissue of it, I think back in like '06 or '07, something like that. And it's been out of print ever since. Now, if you're a fan of Incantation, especially the early stuff, just go ahead and pick this up. Just do it. It sounds quite a bit like Incantation tone-wise. The thundering, relentless, suffocating blast beats and just drum grooves on this thing are so satisfying. This does something to me like not a lot of albums do. When I am enraged with stress and anger and I need an outlet for it, I have two options. I can go out somewhere and beat the shit out of a log or run my head into the side of a brick wall. Great pastimes. Or I can sit down and listen to an album like this and just feel crushed under the weight of the absolute infernal hatred contained on an album like this. It's such a satisfying thing to hear the tone, to hear the band just put together such an orchestration of anger and madness, and just to like live in all of it, just to have the sound completely envelop you in this darkness is just, it's one of the best experiences life has to offer. Oh, this was so good. So yeah, I mean, style-wise, it's almost like it's a drum-driven grindcore album. And you know, I would entertain ideas that it's more of a death metal album than anything. But like, the riffs are very simplistic, and they're maybe even kind of hard to discern. It's mostly just drums and guitar tone, just a wall of thunderous guitar tone, and vocals that are just drenching you in darkness. What a masterpiece. I could just go on about how much I love Beautiful by Immortal Fate, but I won't. That's going to do it for today. I have 37 minutes. I'm very sorry about your time. Let me know what you've been spinning. Let me know what you liked in these videos. Let me know if you check out any of this stuff. And we'll see you over on Patreon, where I have a podcast that you can check out. There's tons of videos over there for my Patreon friends to check out. And again, if you haven't already, hit subscribe and then watch these videos right here. We'll see you in the future. Woohoo! That was a great video, and it was made possible mostly by me, but also thanks to the undying and kind support of my Patreon subscribers. Thank you all. I love you. If you are interested in being a part of my Patreon channel and supporting what I do, you are welcome to join at the URL below. It is only $6.66 per month, and you're going to love it. Thank you.